tune. I just use it as a tool. I like to know like what the tune sounds like. I listen to it a bunch, get it in my head really well, look at the music, and then I can get it really fast that way. So I have nothing against it, but I think training your ear is like the most important thing you can possibly do as a musician, no matter what kind of music you're playing, is to develop that ear, knowing like when you hear something, you got a pretty good idea where it's at on the violin or your whatever instrument it is. I normally play, most of my music is traditional Irish, Scottish music. In most of the bands I play, that's what I've been doing for the last 40-some years. I also play electric guitar, played blues guitar for a long time in bands. Did that since I was a kid, young kid. But I got really into bluegrass at first. I went down to Winfield back in 1976, and just kind of totally turned me around music-wise. And just thought, wow. These bands I was seeing, it was like they had the energy and stuff of rock, but without all the volume. And my ears were starting to hurt. By then I thought, I need a break. And so just kind of did the bluegrass scene for a while. Then I heard some Irish music and just like really turned me on. I just thought, wow, this is the wildest stuff I ever heard. And started getting into that. And but today, I was asked if I could teach a French-Canadian tune. So, French-Canadian tune music is influenced somewhat with Irish music. They do some triplets and things like that in their bowing, like they do in Irish music. Though they do a lot more double stops, which you don't do a lot of in Irish music. Appalachian music, lots of double stops, but. The French Canadian it's a real rhythmic bowing pattern that they use, kind of this, feel like, and that's that time. So it's real danceable. You get the rhythm really quick, if you're a dancer, you're just kind of like, whoa, that's cool. It's also somewhat influenced by the music in France of Brittany, especially like a lot of their songs. They do all this call and response in their singing, which they do in Brittany a lot. So those are just, I think, some of their influences that they had there. I was going to show you. I tried to find the easiest tune, French Canadian tune I know. It's called "The Reel of the Voyageurs." I learned it a long time ago from a band called La Boutique Souriante, which they started, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s, and they were a 5-piece, just totally acoustic band, just a totally folk band. Later on, I think they're even still together today, and they're really not that anymore. They've got horns in the band. They've kind of totally changed their whole sound completely. And I like their early stuff better myself. So let me play this tune and just you'll kind of get an idea. Of course, they do this foot tapping, which they call podo rhythm, podo like podiatry, podorthics and all that. So it's a foot rhythm, and I can kind of show you how they do it. They if you're right, I'm right-handed and footed. I stomp with your right foot, then you tap with the right foot, and then you tap with the left foot, and then come back with a stomp on your right foot. So it's kind of so it gives you a 4/4 rhythm. Some of the bands I've seen, the French Canadian bands, it's not always the fiddler doing it. I've seen a guitar player doing it in a band. Most of the time, it is the fiddlers that tend to do it. And especially if they're playing by themselves. You can accompany yourself really well. And I've even used it in some of my Irish bands, just as an extra rhythm you know, if you don't have a bar-on player in the band, which is the Irish drum, then it's kind of like, then you got this while we're doing it, you know. And even if I'm doing a jig, I might go. So that's a 1, 2, 3, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Well, let me play this tune. It's some people would call this a single reel, which means it's half the length of a normal reel. It's still A, B, B, but it's very short. So. The A part of the tune, you're mainly doing this. Then at that part, you do an up bow slur there, like that. So the bowing roll there is fairly simple to understand because you're not doing a lot of different things. You know, like a lot of times in Irish fiddling, you're slurring a lot and knowing kind of like when to do that, you know, when to get those in, you know, to create the rhythm. But on this, it's just so I'm just playing a C sharp here to an E, so you got a double 2 E's there. So it's all a double. I mean, it's all double stops here with the open E string here, this part. I don't know about you cellos. Okay, so, and if anybody, at some point here, we can, if you got your phones with me, you can record me doing this, and so you can take it home and watch it, you know. But so that we do that, then we're gonna come over here to play an E with an open A string. Okay. You want to try that? Okay. I know you're not all going to get this right away. Especially if you're not used to playing double stops. And I really good, I'm sure Laura's told you to do this, but practice playing double stops just with your open strings. Like this, you know. And just, you know, do that with all your strings when you're practicing, just to kind of get and play as slowly as you can and keep it just super nice and steady. Try and keep the best sounding tone you can. And that just kind of helps all the muscles in your hand and arm to kind of get control of playing double stops, you know. It's way harder than trying to play a single string really slow. But when you play two, it's hard, you know, and I don't do it at practicing enough. So after we do that, play that E there, we're going to go. and then come back to the open A and E. So you just try. We'll just take this a step at a time. Now remember that there's no slurs here. Everybody knows what a slur is? Okay, so there's no slurs at this junction. We'll get one kind of near the end of this. But right now we're just doing this nice and slow. But now the rhythm of this when it's played fast, it's not like it's not that, it's a. So you're going to enhance with your bow, on the downbeat. When you really get to playing it, it speeds at some point. But you want. So you feel that pulse, and that's what makes people want to clap their hands or stomp their feet. Is when they hear that. So. So we're going to come back, like I say, to that open E and A, and then play a C sharp with again. The other thing, there is music to this. So a lot of times with folk tunes like this, it's very hard to find. There's another tune I was thinking about showing you, but I couldn't find any music to it. And I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but I usually get most of my music from a site that's called thesession.org. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. And so you can put this one in there. It's just real. It's DES and then Voyageurs, and it'll come up. Fine. Now, if you've been on this site before, there's many settings of tunes. Usually, sometimes there can be 10 different settings of a tune, because if you're a member of the group and of the session, you can put your own version in. Send it in, and they'll put it up for you. Because sometimes people like playing it just a little bit different, or they maybe even change the key and put that in there for people. And if you go on down to the bottom, there's going to be like all kinds of comments about it. Like where they got these versions from, who they heard do it, and all that. So generally, if I'm looking up a tune, I usually look at the very first version. It's usually going to be the most basic. Unenhanced, version of like throwing in all kinds of ornamentation and stuff like that. And it's usually like a really good bare bones way to learn it in the beginning. This one here, the way I'm playing it, it was not the first one. So I had to go through each one of them and figure out like which one was the closest to how I'm doing it. And it might have been the third one, I can't remember exactly, but it was almost note for note how I'm doing it. And I learned from a band called La Latina Surreal. If you go on YouTube, you can type it in, and there'll be different versions of people doing it. So anyways, back to this. Now we're going to go to a D here after we did that C sharp, E, C sharp, E, back to the A, then C. Then we'll play that D. And that one, what I'm doing, I'm playing D, B, C, A, it'll be all, like I say, with an open E string. Feel like I'm going too fast for you? Are you like? And would you call yourselves beginners or intermediate?
Yes.
Thank you for your honesty.
Not to be beginner, but
yeah, you've been playing a little while.
advanced beginner.
Okay,
I'm just
okay.
trying to get there, so
Right.
trying to see where you're starting. You know, like your first.
Well, the first ones are just going to be an open A and E string, like that. Just yeah, just that, and then you just come down with a C sharp with your open E. All this in the beginning here is just with this open E.
Okay.
And it's like anytime you're playing on the A string, if you're playing notes on, if your main melody is on the A string, the E is going to be your double stop open E. Until I get over here to this E on the D string, then my A is going to be the open string I'm going to play it with. Okay. Yeah. So that yeah, and that's generally the case. I mean, it all kind of depends on like what key a tune is in and what open string you want to play with. I mean, that's what's so important about a violin is like you can't play these tunes in just any old key. You know, you got to make sure you got these open strings you can play with. Because so that say after I do that, then I'm going to put my little finger on the E on the A string. And then come back to that C sharp again. So the melody is just kind of an A, C sharp, E, A, C sharp, A. Yeah. Okay, hey, but hold on.
Hold on one second. I think what would be helpful, just when David's talking, he might be playing too, but just wait till he's done talking. It's hard to hear if you're on the side of the room. Yeah, so you want to explain that again?
Yeah, so the melody here is all on the A string of this beginning part we're doing here. And I'll just play that without the open string. So it's just a, okay? Very simple. And then you'd play that E. And then back to the open A. And then to the C sharp again. There's not really a lot of notes in this. I mean, it's a very, very simple tune. You know, I mean, yeah, there's tunes, French Canadian tunes that are like highly complicated with all kinds of chords they're playing because they get into like they play a lot of rhythmic stuff where they'll do this. You know, that kind of thing, and that gets way more complicated. I mean, it takes a while to get comfortable doing that stuff. You know? So that's why I chose this tune, because I thought it's got double stops, but it's very, very, very simple melody here. So just that. Okay, so give that a try. if everybody
Yeah,
can hear
we'll
me.
put together, yeah.
So, okay, I'll just go nice and slow. I'm just gonna play it on the single notes. So no double stops here, just, now there I'm going to an open E, because that's the melody, but I probably would use my little finger if I was, you know, so. I guess I don't though. No, I don't. I play it. I go and play just an open E there. A lot of times especially in Irish music, one of my teachers that I learned this from, she just said, whenever you can play an open string, do it. You know, because you know it's going to be true every time. Than trying to get your little finger over there. Now sometimes you do want to use your little finger. I mean, especially in this kind of music where you got those double stops like that. But in Irish music, most of the time you don't. I'd say 10% of the time you might use your little finger in a melody, but most of the time just grab that. The only time you wouldn't use an open string is like it's very inconvenient or something like the bowing or something. It's too hard to get there and then get back. You know, in the tune, especially if it's something that's played very fast, you know. But okay, let's try this again. Okay. Yeah. First time we just did that, I didn't play that B. So it's those are the last notes there where it should. Does everybody kind of get those notes? I mean, is there any confusion of what notes to play? Yeah?
Can we loop to that a few times?
Yeah. And if you've got notebook paper, you can write these notes down. Just write, you know, A, C, A, B, or whatever, you know, if that'll help you for the time being. So, okay, again. Yes. Yeah. So it's except for when you go to the E note on the D string. So. I'm sorry. Now there we're going to get on playing melody on the E string, and you're going to use your open A, and that's the only time you're going to have a slur here. You know. So yeah, that right there was 2 A parts. That's why it's a short little tune. Any other questions about that or?
Yeah, the bow stroke that you're using. Can you talk about that? Just the staccato, or?
Yeah, well, it's just you just kind of. So there's a pulse in that They keep slipping the hair.
So, if you're a little lost on what notes to play, you can always just practice that pulsing on your open A and your E. Because this is in the key of A, so A, C sharp, E, those notes work.
This helps, as he's saying. This
Yeah, it's good to practice that bowing pulse, just, on some open strings, the same like if you're doing a jig, you want to learn how to get that, where you go. A lot of times, like before, you're gonna practice a jig, you want to get that going before you even start playing the melody, just so you kind of get that rhythm down and start feeling it in you. You want to kind of develop your body and you feel like you're a metronome, that you got that pulse going inside of you, and it's good to work with metronomes, to get that so you stay nice and steady, but so with this, just Canadian music, that's the most important bowing pattern there is, because 85% or something of it's going to be that, in whatever tune I've learned from them, you're going to be doing lots of that. So with the
What's the name of this tune?
Reel, like R-E-E-L, and then it's D-E-S, and then Voyageurs.
Voyageurs.
Voyageurs, yeah.
That's what you were saying, look up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Voyageurs.
Rue de Voyageurs.
Yeah, I don't speak French at all. So.
Have you played with April?
Huh?
Have you played with April? Birch?
I have, in Boonville last year, I went to the Big Nutty and got to jam with her several times,
I think
yeah.
all the Capricorn players bring. I told you, they always bring a box.
Yeah,
You have to have the box.
Yeah.
Capricorn.
yeah.
And when you're releasing, when you're tapping your note, when your fingers,
Uh-huh.
are you really just very lightly kind of, when you're trying to go across, or are you pressing pretty hard?
Well, I'm pressing just hard enough to make a note. I mean, it's not like in Irish music, you have what ornamentations is called a roll,
Okay,
and you do things where you just tap.
okay.
And like that type of thing. So a roll is something where you only want to hear the note that's being ornamented itself. Now you're going to have notes, a couple of notes around it. You don't want to hear them. You just want to hear, what is that? So it just takes a long time of just doing it. Mainly you want to learn how to do a grace note. And then you have to put another note with it, lower than it. So this is a B roll, so it's and then you lift your finger off, just barely, and bring it right back down, because you don't want to hear that open A hardly at all. Because you don't want to hear this. Yeah, and that's what, when you first start trying to do it, that's what you're going to get, because you just can't move your fingers that fast. It took me a while of once somebody once I met a Scottish or Irish fiddler and they showed me like, well, this is what I'm doing, because I'd say, how are you getting that sound? Oh, well, you just do this. Oh, yeah, all right. So yeah, it's just like hours of just pretty soon, you get your fingers where they'll snap really fast. And then you got to learn to do it, not just, that's one of the easiest ones, is like with having an open string. But like doing that, that type of thing, you gotta get to where you can kind of play it anywhere, But anyways, that's it.
We call that, we've been working on our flicks, that little grace note.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's the same thing as he's doing a flick.
Yeah.
We've
And-
done a little bit with rolls.
Okay, well, the flick or the grace note is, you gotta do that, you gotta learn that before you never get into a roll, because you won't be able to do a roll without doing it. But the flick itself is used all the time. I mean, without the roll, I mean, you can do a, I do that a lot. So I'm not making a roll, I'm just doing that. Now that's a roll, but. And then doing a bow triplet, that's the other thing they do a lot. In that music, where you can really do a lot of that ornamentation is when you have a whole note, where you kind of there's a tune called the Kesh jig, and it has a. So when you got that G and that open A, well then you want to do something with it, It's okay to play it just like that, once, but you want to go, but then you want to you can do a bow triplet, which is, you can do it just on the note itself, like that, which is super exciting. Or then you can add another note with it, like with a G to an F sharp, like that. And then with the A, you'd put a B in with it, like that. And then just kind of learning the timing of that. You always have to play a note before it. There's like like this. Well, actually two. You play the note, and then like that. And just doing that nice and slow. And then the other thing is to do a roll there, because you've got plenty of time to do a roll. Now that, with that open A, it's not a true roll like you would have here on this G, because you're playing a note lower. Well, you can't play a note lower than the A on the A string. So they call this a cran. It's just another word for an open string roll. And that gets used a lot. It's kind of, what you're doing is you're imitating the uilleann pipes. Where do they go? They'll have tunes where you go, I can't think right now. I'm trying to think of this tune. You'll do that, and it sounds like you're hearing a piper. And some fiddlers, ever since they were little, maybe they had a dad or mom who played the uilleann pipes, and so they heard it all the time, and when they started playing fiddle, they just immediately was imitating that sound. So I've heard Sean Keane, who's the fiddler for the Chieftains, he has some solo albums out where, there's just him, there's no accompaniment at all. And if you close your eyes and really listen to him, you think you're listening to uilleann pipes. It's like you're not even hearing a fiddle. It's so cool.
Have you written some?
Written tunes?
Yeah.
I haven't written Irish tunes. I've written I've written tunes on the guitar. So when I sing songs on the guitar, a lot of times I'll write a tune to go accompany the song. The song's over and we go right into a tune. So I've done that on a few things like that. But yeah, not a lot of. I have written some fiddle tunes. But I did some that were kind of old-timey sounding.
I'm sorry,
No.
could you play one of the tunes that you really enjoy that you think is a good basic fiddle tune from beginning to end, just so we can get an idea of continuation?
You mean an Irish or something, or what?
Yeah.
I think, okay. I'll play you one. This is a real popular one called "The Morning Dew," and it's got lots of variations and things in it. That's the thing is, like, once you learn the basic tune, and you learn some ornaments and stuff, well, then you start like going more deep diving into like listening to as many people as you can playing that tune, and what are they doing with it? Because everybody wants to show off. Get solo records. Even if it's a flute record, a pipe record, whatever. When it's a person who is like, this is their solo album, okay, now they're really wanting to say, this, look at what I can do, you know? And so those are the ones to find because they're doing the really cool stuff. Listening to a band, it's harder to pick all that stuff out, you know? So here this goes.
That was awesome, thank you. For those of you that are in the online part, then you can print off the music, because I think I teach it on the art in our online school. But could you talk about why you're holding your bow without most of your fingers on it?
Yeah, that's just the way that's just me. I don't get into a lot, when I'm teaching at home with people, I don't get into a lot of like how to hold it. You know Pat Ireland, I don't know if you know, he teaches down at Casey Strings. Well, I got to know him back in the 70s and stuff when I first started playing the violin, and I took some lessons from him. And he showed me, of course, how to properly hold it and all that. But I don't know, you just tend to change up. Raina Geller, I don't know if any of you have heard of her. She's a really great old-time fiddler. Well, she was taught to play classical music as a child, but now she holds her bow up here, you know. And I don't know why. I've never talked to her, so I don't know why she changed her bowing style. We had at our shop. I work at Crute Strings, which is part of Casey Strings. It's a wholesale shop where we set up violins and violas and cellos and everything. And what's her name? She's a bluegrass mandolin player and singer. She came into the shop. What did I tell you? What was her name? Oh man, I'm terrible about remembering people's names. Rhonda Vincent. Yeah. So she's a big, in the bluegrass world, she's a big star. And her whole band showed up. And y'all familiar with the Match Sellers?
Yes.
Okay. So Andrew and Julie, they worked with me in the same room, and they set up violins with me, and I was not there. I go to Fort Scott every Wednesday and teach music down there, and they were there, and he was cutting a bridge for them. So Rhonda had her phone filming the whole thing. So it's like a half hour. If you go onto her Facebook page, you'll find it. And then the fiddler, her fiddler, he's just an amazing bluegrass fiddler. Whole time he's got his finger up just like this. You know, the whole time he's playing, I noticed them. So I don't know why that is. It's like, I'm not consciously thinking about how I should hold my bow, I guess, and I didn't play as a child. I didn't learn to play violin until I was in my mid-20s. So, just.
That's great. No, I just wanted to hear it from
And
you.
I've seen so many folk fiddlers, you know, whether it's Irish or whatever, hold their bow in all kinds of weird ways. I was working down at the Folk Alliance one year, and this one guy, we had a booth at, you know, where we were for Casey Strings, and this guy came by and started playing. He was holding his bow like this, and he was really good. I mean, he was good. You know, he was good. I mean, he could play really well, but it's like I've never seen anybody hold their bow like that. I mean, I was like, what in the world? But you know, he just taught himself, you know, how to do it. It's like, you know, I mean, I've seen like, you know, guitar players, Jeff Healey, who was this amazing blues guitar player, played it on his lap. He was blind, and he just learned how to play like this with his fingers like that, you know. And if you ever want to see him play, he's passed away now. He got cancer, but he's in that movie Roadhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, they had an incredible singer too.
Oh yeah, he was a great singer, phenomenal guitar player.
Well, it's nice to know he was doing, yeah, I remember he was playing it on the lap.
Yeah. So, people learn in all kinds of bizarre ways. You know, viola da gamba players, you know, play like this, or, you know, they have a violin size one. I think, what do they call it? They don't call it viola da gamba, partisu, I think it is. But it's got frets on it, and there's six strings. They were kind of the predecessor to the guitar and the violin family. You know, Jordi Savall, you familiar with him? He's from Spain. He's like one of the most famous viola da gamba players in the world. And years ago, 15 years ago, his whole band, he had like a small orchestra come and play here in Kansas City, and they were just amazing, playing all these old instruments. They all go date back to the 1500s and stuff. So.
Well, luckily we've got Gerbil.
We do.
You want to talk about your Irish session?
Oh yeah, there's an Irish session tonight at Prospero's bookstore, just up here on 39th and Bell. We have it there once a month on Sundays. Normally it's the second Sunday of each month, but this month, I think maybe next month they had to change it because of just things that were going on, you know, on that particular Sunday.
Is it a jam session? Or?
It's a jam session.
It's hard. I went and it's hard. So I recommend bring your fiddle and just know you might listen the whole time. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't know the tunes, I mean, the Irish ones are hard to pick up. I think harder than the old time ones.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about like if you go to an old time session, they just play one tune for like 20 minutes. And to me, it's like, oh man, okay, I've done this enough.
They change the key on it or anything?
No, they just play it over and over and over and over again.
You would like that, I think.
Yeah. Well, you really get to know the tune. I mean, you got time to explore it. And you think of like, what else could I do with this?
Yeah, what they do at Prospero's is people come and there's the people playing and there's all sorts of instruments, but then there's a bunch of people watching or just enjoying the music, so you can just go. Don't they usually have food and beer?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like $5.
Yeah, so.
I think it's $7 now.
It's $7 for the band, just, you know, and then, Will, who runs Prospero's, he'll sell, beer and shots of whiskey, and usually has some food, and just know it's all cash. So it's a cash, and if you come, it's upstairs at Prospero's, and there'll be a sign that says private party, and that's so he can sell beer. But it's private to whoever shows up. You guys should really come, because it's a
Yeah.
They all notice
These
the
guys are amazing. There's several fiddle players, mandolin, Mizuki, Gerald Trimble will be there playing the viola da gamba, which is just kind of fascinating to watch. And about 15 bull-on players. Because everybody can play the bull-on, right?
I think they can.
So yeah, you got you covered. It's a good part.
What time does it start?
Well, they have a song session that starts at 5 now.
What is that?
Well, it's just you're in a circle, and if you bring whatever instrument you want, or you can sing a cappella, you know. But we just go in a circle and sing a song, and people are welcome to join in if they know it or can or whatever. Sometimes it's just like I usually will borrow somebody's guitar because I don't bring a guitar to it because I bring a tenor banjo and a fiddle, and I can't carry a guitar too. So borrow a guitar and sing a song or
Do
something.
anybody ever sing and play fiddle at the same time? I
You-
think that's pretty hard.
It is, and yeah, it can be done, of course. Bruce Molsky is an old time fiddler. He's really good at it. He's probably one of the best I've seen do it. I've done it a little bit, but yeah, it is hard. Just like doing this, I mean, playing, it just takes time to like work that out. You just gotta do it slowly. I mean, first you gotta learn how to do this.
Did you learn that when you were a kid?
What?
The feet?
No.
So there's hope.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't learn how to do that, and I was like, oh, kids.
No. Sometimes I have a pair of tap shoes, and sometimes I use that, but I just brought some hard, you know, if you get some hard leather shoes of some kind, and then did that. And then with this board, I've got a hole in it where I can put a microphone in it. So if I'm playing on stage somewhere, we stick a mic inside of it, and then the PA guy can control however loud he wants that, you know.
You also need a taller chair to sit in.
Yeah, you gotta, I've seen a lot of guys like use a chair just that size there and do it on the floor, but it is hard because you're like, you know, lifting your feet up like that. And this, you know, you're kind of hanging down. It's so much easier, less stress on your back and all.
So you have to have a higher chair, because I was like, my thought, how do you do that with your thighs? Okay, so you're hanging down.
Yeah, and some people will use a board that's just flat, you know, what I mean, yeah, this is hollow, I mean, it's, you know, it's,
Better sound.
yeah, it's hollow and stuff like this. You can see I've got these holes there on each side where I can stick a mic in if I need to. And
Where do you buy one of those?
I don't know because we made this.
Get your carpenter friend out today.
Yeah, we gotta get a carpenter friend to do that. Yeah, and so you just
It's just fun.
so you once you learn how to do this. Now, learn you a tune really well. I mean, you got this tune down so good, you know. Then try just doing. Something like that. Just do the beginning of the tune. Don't try and go through the whole thing, even though you know it really well. Just get the rhythm down where you're going. You got to keep this going no matter what you're doing on the fiddle. This has got to stay steady the whole time. And in a band you might stop playing. And I had a flute player that would play it apart. Like we take turns going back and forth, but I got to keep this going the whole time. So, but after a while it just starts to feel natural. It just becomes a part of you and what you're doing, and it looks like a big deal at first, but the same way, like if you're gonna sing a song with the fiddle, you gotta really know the song first really well, and you gotta figure out what am I gonna do, like I got one. When I was a lad, immer alive, I heard many stories, both lovely and wild. So you kind of learn the melody of it and just sing along with it, There's like different ways of doing that, or I used to do that, the Battle of New Orleans, on the fiddle and sing it at the same time. This takes practice. Yeah. How we doing on time?
Let's see, we have about 13 minutes. Do you guys, wanna keep, ask questions, or do you wanna go back and work on that tune? You need to work on the tune?
Okay. So
Let's do the second part.
we haven't even got into the second part. The A part is basically kind of what I showed you, but you know, it just kind of repeats, and it'll have that little thing at the end where it has that slur, you know, so it's a. So with that second half of it is. And then we'll go into this. Now there are some like flicks we're doing there. They're not really grace notes. You do want to hear the note. It's just very quick, you know. And a lot of slurs in this part here. So it's not, you're not doing that heavy rhythmic bowing on this part. So it's just a like that. So I'm going like down. You'll have this like a harder. And when you do a slur, it's always like this. It's kind of like you know, that kind of a feel. And you'll have that in Irish music a lot, you know. You know, so that slur is always kind of like, you know, you've got the downbeat and bow, downbeat, bow, you know. So that gives that really good rhythm. So. And when after I do that, so I'm just coming to an F sharp and then to a D, a C sharp. Okay. So yeah, okay. So I'll play that little section. Now remember, this is not really a flick. Okay. It may sound like it when it's played really fast, but you want to hear the note. It's not that. Okay. So it's now you start with the down bow here. So that way you almost always slurs are going to be up bows. Not 100% of the time, but 90% of the time, I'd say. You know. Because you don't have as much drive when you're coming up, usually. I mean, you can if you really want to, but I mean, most of the time, you know, you got gravity, downbeat, upbeat, downbeat, yeah. So you see when I'm coming down that A, I'm coming down much harder. That's where I'm driving the beat, you know. And that's a slur there from the D to the C sharp. Yeah, you want to try that?
With us, please.
I'm sorry?
With us, please.
Okay. Try that again. So you notice every slur, I'm going up. Yeah, so I'm going down with that. And here. You see how that works?
Do it again, please.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try that all together. I mean, with every music, the bowing and stuff is very important. And it's not, the thing is that you'll find, when I've studied different fiddlers, I mean, there are many, especially if I've studied more Irish fiddlers, there's many ways of doing it the right way. And they all sound right. I mean, they all sound authentic and great. And you'll play the same tune. I'll hear like 10 different Irish fiddlers play it. They all are bowing differently, directions, doing different ornamentation in places, doing different, different arrangements, you know. That all sounds great, but then if you hear somebody doing it wrong, you know. And that's the thing is study listening to people doing it right so that you know when you're hearing it's wrong. You know, when you hear somebody playing it, you'll just like immediately a red flag comes up. You go, no, that's not right. That doesn't even sound in the, you know.
Well, what makes it sound wrong?
Well, not like that. Like if somebody went, you know, just bowing every note or just something like that, you know. They might just be playing the notes off the page and they're on YouTube and they, you know, they think, oh, I can play this, you know. Well, again, you know, it's, yeah, you played all the right notes, but, well, there's an old-time fiddler, Tommy Gerald. He's long dead now, but I remember back 40 years ago, they made a documentary on him, and he was an old man then. And people like Bruce Molsky, Lisa Ornstein, these really great old-time fiddlers, they would like pilgrimage down in North Carolina to find this guy and like learn from him, and especially all of his bowing stuff. And he told the story. He goes one time, he says, well, you know, one time there was this feller came down to see me, and he knew 1,000 fiddle tunes. Couldn't play one of them. So yeah, you can like learn tons of tunes out of a book, but you might not really know how to play them, you know. And so that's why you really have to study whatever genre it is, you know, and get into it deep, you know, and like forget about everything else for a while, you know. Like if I want to get into French Canadian fiddling, I'm not going to play any Irish music for a while. I'm just going to really listen to this and absorb as much of it as I can. Listen to as many bands of it as I can and different fiddlers playing it, and just start getting that feel what it really sounds like, you know. And so yeah, I've done that with that. I like Breton music from France. It's a Celtic style of music, and it's just, I think, amazingly beautiful. And I got into that because many years ago a Breton band came through town called Cornog, and they just blew everybody's mind, you know. And it was like everybody like, oh, we want to sound like that. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, and the problem is like, even though you hear something, like I found a guy on YouTube who's from the island of Crete, and he just blew me away, his fiddle playing and stuff. And it's like, but you know, it'd be really hard to learn that. And because I don't know anybody around here that could show you what he's doing, how to do that style, and then where would you play it, or who would you play it with, you know? And even like with this French Canadian music, you know, there's just not a lot of people in town that know it. There's a handful of, you know, but yeah, you gotta learn it for the love of it itself sometimes, you know. Or like sometimes I'll learn an Irish tune that I know that nobody else is gonna play, you know, in town. But I hear it and I think, I've gotta learn that. There's something about it grabs me, and I'm gonna learn it no matter whether anybody else ever plays it or not. But if you learn it really well, and you show up to sessions and start playing it, everybody will just kind of, well, nobody knows it, but they're gonna sit and listen to you. Because they got to, you know, if you're started. You don't want to do that too often, you know, because you do want, you know, it is a session. But sometimes, like, you know, you might just say, hey, I just found this new tune. I think it's really great. So pretty soon, people, if they like it, they start learning it, you know. They may record you while you're there, you know. That's a good thing. Like, I remember years ago, new people would come to the Irish session, and they just bring a little voice recorder digital thing and set it out and just record the whole night. And then they go back and like what they might do is like, they want to know, well, what's the names of those tunes? So they might just say after it was over, say, what was the name of those? And then somebody would say it, and then that'd be on the tape, you know, or on the recorder. You got a question back there?
I was gonna say, could you play a Breton song that?
Oh, yeah.
Don't trip
Yeah, this is I'll play one, the fiddler from Cornwall, put out a record, and when he was in town, I bought it from him, a CD. And it's a medley of two different tunes, they're totally different. It's not like they're really, I don't know, it was weird how they went together, but they changed the rhythm of it. But anyway, the first part is a slow, nice slow tune.
That was beautiful. So it's 4:30, and David, thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. Let's give him a round. So I'll send you the music for the tune with all the bones. And you can learn it. And then, what time does the fiddling start tonight?
6.
Okay, so I'll be there. You'll know somebody if you want to go. Wes, do you know it? You'll know Wes.
David, did you do a Celtic workshop in Lawrence a year ago?
I did, and I just did one just a couple weeks ago.
I was in the one a year ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And are you, do you take private lessons? Do you have any room for that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So if you want his information, he'll teach you how to do it. Are you from Kansas City or Lawrence?
I live out in Overland Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, real close to the old downtown area of Overland Park.
I can tell you, I've taken a couple lessons from David, and you get about an hour of lessons, and about 3 hours of musicology. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll text you. I might.
David, I'll bring that. I don't want to just like stay up in the corner and try to pick something up.
I like the way we
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.